Most of the things we talk about here are about how to rely on yourself. The fact that you are the most influential person in your life and you need to be in control of that over other people. I completely believe in that, and I think it's such an important lesson because it's a way of taking the pressure off other people's words and bringing it back to yourself, knowing yourself better than anyone and taking charge of everything in your life. You don't have the excuse to be able to blame anyone else for anything if you're the one holding all the responsibility. All of that is so valid, but there's also some times when you need to be humble and you need to open up and ask other people for their help. Sometimes we take on too much ourselves. Sometimes we think that we can manage everything that's going on in our lives and we don't need anyone else. And while in some ways that can be a great thing, if it's overcoming you and overwhelming you, perhaps it's time to reach out. In society today, we kind of feel like we have to present a happy front at all times. People don't want to see misery. They don't want to experience negativity. You don't want to be the person that's whining on about the problems in your life because nobody wants to listen to that. So many cases of poor mental health come about from people trying to shut the rest of the world out, stubbornly trying to tackle everything that's on their plate by themselves, and being so wrapped up in their own thoughts, in their own head, that they can't see reality anymore. Their reality is a warped version of the world that they have created inside their own brain. And that's where things get dangerous. That's where things get scary. Maybe what we need to learn is there's a difference between whining on about insignificant things and realizing when we have actual problems that need to be discussed. Things that we can't cope with on our own. Things that are delving deep within us and are coming up with self-destruction. There's ways of going about this. Part of being the best we can be for ourselves is recognizing when we can't do it on our own anymore. When we have actual issues that need to be dealt with. It's not self-love if we're depriving ourselves of making anything better in our lives because we're too stubborn to speak out. We shouldn't see that as taking the control out of our hands because the control is firmly in our hands. We've made that decision to ask for help. We've identified something in us that we know we can't deal with alone. It takes a lot of strength and bravery to tell people your actual concerns. Maybe that's why we have this whiny, insignificant worries thing going on at the moment, because that's easy. It's easy to rant about things that are going on in your day, small things that don't really amount to much and don't really mean anything. But the stuff in our lives which hits us at the core, which makes us feel like, what's the point in going on? The stuff that we suffer with in silence, and the parts of our lives that we hide, that's a whole other kettle of fish. Often we let these kind of problems mount up over years and years, and how do you begin explaining your life story of pain to anybody? How are they ever going to understand? For many of us, that means we just won't try, because they won't get it. They'll just say something stupid and meaningless in response that's 100 miles from hitting the mark. We can't let that fear stop us, because that's what it is. We're creating excuses in our brain not to have to confront this terrifying thing of having to put ourselves out there, show ourselves as vulnerable, open up about our weaknesses. As human beings, we find all of these things extremely difficult. So we tell ourselves, there's no reason for it anyway. It won't get us anywhere. It won't really help. But one thing's for sure, it'll help more than if you keep it all to yourself. Even if the person you decide to tell doesn't have the answer, maybe they know somebody who does. Maybe they can say something that makes you think in a different way in your head, or makes you come up with something you'd never considered before. You don't have to take their advice. In fact, they don't even have to offer advice. Sometimes it's just about being listened to. Sometimes it's just about voicing those feelings for somebody else to hear. It's such a powerful thing. Something that might really hurt at the time, but is going to be so valuable in the long run. It might just set you free from yourself. Recently in my own life, I've learned to open up about things that I know are destroying me from the inside out. It really wasn't easy, but I got to the point where I knew I had to do it. It might be one of your only options left. And what I've found is that the more I've done it, the more hope I've felt. People do get it. They do understand. We can relate to each other more than we think. People are going through all kinds of things, and you talking to them about your problems might allow them to open up about their own. They might just need that springboard, and you can help each other. This might be one of the most precious things in life. Something that makes us bond more than anything else. Sharing the things that, even when we think about them, make our eyes fill with tears. Because we're so emotionally invested, and yet we couldn't find the words to express it before. We couldn't find anything that might sum up how we are feeling. It's worth trying, believe me. It's a long road. I'm still very much at the beginning of it, but I'd rather be walking that road with people around me than coming to the end of mine on my own. You need to take charge of this situation, and sometimes taking charge of the situation means splitting your burden in two, knowing when it's time to make a change, and that change might be the way you've done things for the whole of your life up until this point. It certainly was for me. I had always thought the answer was to smile to people's faces and not tell them that I was crying behind closed doors. When you tell someone those things, you give them the chance to help you. You multiply your possibilities by 1,000,000, and you open up a whole new door of opportunity to make things better for yourself. We might think that we can cope with things on our own, but the truth is nobody can. And if you're that person who's going to stubbornly insist that you're going to be the one to be different in that way, you're only harming yourself. Practice opening up. Not everyone is going to be able to save you, but the more you reach out and open up and tell people how you're feeling, the better chance you've got of being able to make things better and save yourself.